Since you're going to do a roll call vote, do we want to go ahead and wait on Fred?
You can go ahead and start, and when he comes in, I will ask him to acknowledge he's here.
Okay. Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Grayson County School Board virtual meeting to order here on May 11th, and we're all in our respective homes or offices somewhere in Grayson County. I'd like to welcome everyone. This Grayson County School Board meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with the continuity of governance ordinance passed by the Grayson County School Board of Supervisors on April 1st, 2020. At this time, I'll ask Mary to do a roll call vote to determine if we have a quorum for the meeting.
Mrs. Haynes?
Present.
Mr. Sage?
Present.
Mr. Chenault?
Present.
Mr. Andrews?
Present.
All right, Mr. Anders, would you lead us in a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Sure. Would you all please join me in a moment of silence? Thank you. Now for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and
liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mrs. Funk, student accomplishments.
Yes, good evening, board. Mr. Wilmore. I have a few accomplishments to share with the board this evening. I'd like to start out with the Kate Center. They, Superintendent of Public Instruction James Lane, announced $600,000 in competitive grants to 16 high schools and technical centers to upgrade equipment for their career and technical education programs. And I'm proud to announce that Grayson County was the recipient of $37,000 and $37,500 to integrate an automotive alignment system into our automotive. So I would like to congratulate the CTE program and Mr. Huff for pursuing this, because out of the number of school divisions, only 16 received this. And it's also worthy of mentioning that we also received a grant from this same funding source last year. So that's 2 years in a row for our career and technical program.
That's unheard of. That's great.
Awesome news for our CTE. I'd also like to recognize Miss Sarah Cunningham, who has been accepted into a virtuals governor's school in engineering. So we would like to shout out to her and congratulate her on her accomplishments, because there are lots of students that apply for this, and she was awarded by the Department of Ed. So we are very proud of her for receiving this great honor.
Absolutely. Have we ever had anybody to do that?
Yes, we do usually have maybe one to go. A lot of times they're at Tech, UVA, Radford University. Of course, this one's virtual, but we do have usually maybe one or two. I don't think we had anyone last year, but it is a great honor to be chosen. Also, I'd like to recognize, even though we were unable to have our character education banquet that we usually have every year to recognize our division, good characters throughout our wonderful schools, I want to recognize them tonight. Although we can't meet, we have created their certificates, sent them to their schools. They're going to receive those. Their pictures we're in the process of getting their pictures posted on the school and division websites so that they can be continually recognized, because I think this is a great honor to recognize the good characters in the schools. So beginning with Fairview, is our good character, good citizens are Weston Hodges and Hannah Rippey. From Freeze, on the elementary side, Colson Burchett and Abigail Linkus. From the middle school at Freeze, Miranda Blevins and Jacob Osborne. From Grayson County High School, Jackson Hardy and Hyer Morsey. Grayson Highlands, Brady Donovan at the elementary, Slade McGrady at the elementary. And then at the middle is Maggie Ham and Brady Cinchel from the middle. Independence Elementary is Parker Dow and Caitlin Marsh. Independence Middle is Emily Vaughn and Zachary Wingate. And again, this is great honors, in my opinion, to be chosen out of all the students in their school for the Good Citizen Award. And we wanted to recognize them at this board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. That is, of all the awards to give, that's one that I would be most proud to have. So congratulations to all those students. Thank you, Mrs. Funk. Mrs. Linker, Teacher of the Year presentation.
Yes, ma'am. It's my privilege to announce each of the school winners named as Teacher of the Year for their respective schools. For Grayson County High School, we have Miss Deb Greif. From Independence Middle School, Regina Graffam. From Freeze School, Mithy Ann Shelton. From the Career and Technical Ed Center at the high school, Miss Jamie Wingate. From Independence Elementary School, Miss Amy Phillips. From Fairview Elementary, Miss Linda Burnett. And from Grayson Highlands, and also the Grayson County Schools Teacher of the Year, Miss Bethany Handy. So Ms. Handy will, in fact, she called me first thing this morning, and she will be working on her portfolio to submit for the next level of regional competition. We generally, as you know, recognize all of these folks at the May board meeting to celebrate all of our fine teachers, but especially those that have been named to this for this distinction each year. And I have promised them that as soon as we're able to get back, we will pick up with our usual reception so that you can provide the proper accolades to these folks. So we'll try to do that at least by August.
We hope, right?
Right.
We hope. Well, congratulations to all of them. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The agenda is approved. I also will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The consent agenda is approved.
Mrs. Haynes,
Yes.
Mr. Weatherman's here. If you hold on just for a minute. We'll get
Okay.
him.
Oh, and I forgot to do a roll call vote, so we'll do that while he's coming in. Do we want to approve this agenda when Mr. Weatherman's here?
And whatever you want to do, he'll be ready in just a minute.
Okay, we'll just wait just a second.
I see you standing back there, Fred.
Okay, board members, I apologize. I forgot that we need to do a roll call vote since this is a virtual meeting. So I will at this time ask Mary to do a roll call vote to approve the agenda.
Mrs. Haynes,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Chenault,
Yes.
Mr. Andrews,
Yes.
Mr. Weatherman,
Yes.
And I will also ask you, Mary, to do a roll call vote to approve the consent agenda.
Mrs. Haynes,
Yes.
Mr. Weatherman,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Chenault,
Yes.
Mr. Andrews.
Yes.
Okay, I think I'm back on board now. Good Welcome, Mr. Weatherman. Mrs. Linker, information items.
Yes, ma'am. We have several policies to update, and I offer those for the first reading for tonight. Most of them are just basic changes in the language based on some minor detail or some new connotation for another policy. But I would draw your attention to those that are going to be some substantial change to us. Policy GDQ, it's called the titled school bus drivers, is putting in place a new federal requirement for annual drug testing, drug screening for our drivers. In the past, you may know that we have a company that we work with, and they do a random pull every quarter, and they generally pull about 10 drivers and randomly assess. Now, with everybody having to be assessed at least once a year, I've spoken with Ms. Anders. She's already working with the company that does this for us, and they're working on a plan for how we will do that, but it's just a new federal requirement. Policy, because the next policy that you see that where there's really a change required, I've written a handwritten note at the top. There is a policy JECB that we had not had previously, and we need to add that policy. Since we had a 1992 policy by that same name, I looked at what we needed to do with it. Even though it is an older policy, it addresses transfers of students. And if they move within the division over the course of a year, what the requirements are for transfer. It also addresses students who would look to transfer in from outside Grayson County Public Schools. I looked at all of the policies in that section, and I do feel like we need to keep this one. And so that's why I'm recommending that we simply have a name change there, and it will put this policy adjacent to all the other policies on transfer. So it really puts it in a better location. And then policy JECB, this is not a new policy for VSBA, but it is new for us. And it's regarding admission of non-public students for part-time enrollment. We have not done that in the past, but because of a new law that requires us, any division that has a junior ROTC program is required to offer that up for any homeschooled or private school students. So really the next policy, LBD on home instruction, we had that policy prior, but we have to make the change regarding our ROTC program. So that's what is prompting us to add the JECB. And that's why it's all completely underlined, because it will be new for us. So essentially, we're saying that we will accept students to enroll who are either home or private schooled in Grayson County. We'll bring those students in. They can join in the ROTC program, but they also have to participate in an academic class if they're going to participate in other activities. If they're coming in primarily for an activity, like a sport, for example, they're required to meet all the requirements of BHSL, which means, as you know, they have to be passing 3 of 4 classes. So we feel like the numbers there would be very small, but if we had that unique situation, we feel like these policies will cover us in case we need to enroll a student.
All right, thank you for that information.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Wilmore, Superintendent's report.
Ms. Haynes,
Yes, sir.
I got a question for Ms. Linker.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Ms. Linker, on the food service, that first paragraph, could you explain that to me? You want me to read it?
I'm going to it right now.
What's the policy? Where are the policy letters, Fred?
EFB,
So it's food services.
food service, the first paragraph.
Employees of Grayson County School Board do not require a student who cannot pay for a meal at school or who owe a school meal debt to do chores or other work to pay for such meals or wear a wristband or a hand stamp. That's the policy as it came to us from VSBA. Believe it or not, there are divisions who you'd almost say punished students. Some even gave meals that were not in line with what the other students had. We do not do any of that and
We
haven't.
don't need, so we've not had a problem like that before.
No.
Okay, well, that hit me wrong.
Yeah, that's a great question. We had lots of calls, I guess last year, questioning if students got just like a peanut butter sandwich rather than the regular meal. And our students get the regular meal. If they're not able to pay for their lunch or they have too many charges, the cafeteria staff and Ms. Muncie, when she has to get involved, the principals, they work directly with the parents, but the children are provided the same meal as other students.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mr. Wilmore, Superintendent's report.
Yes, ma'am. I've got a few things to update you folks on. Our building at the high school, of course, has been ordered. I sent you a copy of the RFP that we put out to purchase the building or what the loan is going to be. And I've talked to you all about it, how we're going to take care of that next couple of years. I feel pretty good about what we've got going on for this year financially, and we were able to do a few other things that we needed to do. The trailers, some of you asked about the trailers. 2 of them have been removed. One gentleman has bought the other 4. They were down there this past weekend, removing and getting everything ready for the first one to go out, and they're going to be taking them out in order. So I look for the next, I talked to Bill here just a little while ago, I look for the next several weeks for those to be gone long before our building comes in. So that's.
Do we know when the building is coming in?
I do not. He's working on trying to get us an updated date on it. And he asked them to try to put a hurry on it if they could. It's coming from Oklahoma. So, and they're not shut down right now. So he said that he thinks that we should get a decent time back on it. But I don't have a time to give you right now. But as soon as he lets me know, I will let you folks know. As far as the budget, Michelle says she thinks she'll have everything finished tomorrow. And after I get to review it and Ms. Funk and Ms. Linker and the rest of us review it, we'll send it to you probably Thursday. So you'll have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If you have any questions, I'll be out of town for a few days, but you can call me or call Michelle, either one, email us, whatever, and it gives you time to look over the budget before we have our meeting on Monday. Also, with money we were talking about, we were saving. A couple things we're doing right now. We're doing the floors that we were not able to do at the high school before, which are closets and coaches' offices. They still have the old nasty 50-year-old tile in those at the high school, so we're having those redone right now. We're also having the locker room downstairs in the middle school, another one of those redone, the big one, which is the boys, because we've already done the girls. And we also have the trainer's room done. And of course, when these floors are done, they don't need any more maintenance. You don't have to wax these floors ever again. So this should be a tremendous improvement for some of those. Also, we've gotten a quote and sending out an RFP for asbestos removal. And we're going to have the hallways in the middle school and the classrooms, the asbestos removed. I've already got one quote, which is a real good quote, same one that won it last time. And it'll take a few weeks before we're still waiting on the other quotes. But we plan on doing the hallways in the middle school and those classrooms just like we've done the high school. So there'll be no more maintenance on those high school or the middle school hallways, I'm sorry. No more waxing on those once we get this done. So also I've got just put out a purchase order here to do the HVAC for the middle schools we had discussed. So we will have those units put in. This also includes units. Some of these will go down in our new building. And those we should be straight electric on that campus, at least the middle school, the high school, and if we have enough money left over at the end of the year, we'll do the gym as well. And that would put us straight electric in those two. The only thing we're missing in the Kate Center is the big rooms, which are of course the your shops, those are not air conditioned. Those are still run off the boilers. We eventually could do those, but those are going to take a much larger unit than a split system. But everything else should be straight electric. And as you all know, we had a really warm winter, so propane is going to be outrageous next year. I hate to say that, but it is. And that should save us some money by being able to do that. Graduation, you all see the email that I forwarded you from Ms. Raper and Mr. Musser. Now we originally had said the 12th or the 13th. The 13th would be the makeup date. And because of the restrictions, we're having, of course, to go with the 13th, and we will be here all day that day. The good news that I do have is we are doing, of course, small groups, but they can have 8 guests. And if you saw here, Pulaski County and Radford are doing stadium because they have big enough stadiums, of course, to do it. They seat over 10,000. I think Pulaski's maybe 12 or 15. But anyway, they're only allowing 4 people, and they all have to be 6 feet apart. And they're even having to put people on the visitor side who are going to see the back of the head of the kids. So at least with this, we're going to be able to spread people out, bring them in groups, and be able to get people in and out that day. So if you look at I sent you how we're going to do this. We're providing masks that day. We're going to require everyone to come in to have a mask. We're also going to check everyone's temperature when they come in. We'll have our nurses working that day. And, hopefully we'll have everything ready to go here for graduation that day. I think we've got it pretty well organized right now. Just got to knock out a couple other small things. Prom, there's not been a definite decision yet on the prom, but it does not look good because of the timeline. As I sent you all with the governor, I don't see any way we're going to be able to do the prom unless it was like late July. And of course, you'll have some kids that are already gone to college by then or whatever. That one does not look promising. So I don't even know if we could break the prom up into small groups of, 2 proms or 4 proms or junior and senior separate. I don't even know if that's going to work because I don't know if we're going to get past the 50 mark because we haven't got to that yet. So as you all see, the number of cases are growing. So I'm just not feeling good about the prom. I'm hoping there's something we can work out down the road, but it's a heck of a liability for us if we have that many kids in one place and we don't have coverage from the state on how to do that. So I hope everybody understands that it's not my call. It's the state's call, and we're just following the law. There's no summer school. Mr. Sage, so there's no summer school. You'd ask me, as did several people. They're not going to allow any kind. The only summer school that seems to be allowable, and I haven't seen this from the state superintendent yet. I've heard some superintendents talking about it, but I haven't seen a confirmation, is bringing children in small groups. And I don't know how that's going to work. I don't think that's any better, not till this thing passes. So one positive note I have for you, looks like we are going to be able to serve meals this summer, and students can still come pick meals up. I don't know how many cafeterias we're going to be able to open. That's still up in the air, but as soon as I do know, I will let the public know. And of course, I'll let you folks know. But, I will tell the board that we're already planning next year several ideas. Number one, school starts after Labor Day. That may be our decision or that may be the state's decision. I'm not really sure. As you all know, they've wanted us to start after Labor Day for years. Back when I was in high school, the east side of the state has, and so is Richmond. And that's, of course, never happened because of snow. But I will not be shocked if we're not held back till past Labor Day. So we're going to go ahead and start planning on a Labor Day start if that's what we're required to do. And we may do that ourselves if the cases keep growing. We're also looking at a plan of if we are shut down in the middle of the first semester, if we are shut down at the end of the first semester, or if we are shut down once again in the middle of the second like we were this year. We're going to have several plans of action to be ready, and we're going to be ahead of this just like we were last time. And I will tell the board, if you read those VSBA updates and things, there's a lot of divisions that I feel really good about how far ahead we are on the game. And we really, all of us came in that weekend, the teachers and administrators, and we really put a lot of hours in there for about 4 or 5 days in a row, and it got us ahead. but we're going to have to be ready again because I see this coming. And it's, you know, you see all the data and you see all the experts saying that there's going to be another shot of this coming in the fall. So I just feel that we need to be ready and be ahead of the game for sure, academically at all levels. But I am going to talk to the county about the new 5G initiative because I know the folks that are doing this gigabyte. In fact, I had one of the engineers, he was at James Monroe when I was there as a student. But, you know, I'm going to see what we could do to offer this when this starts going. I think, Mr. Sage, they're starting on your end, and then they're working up towards the mountain, and then they're coming back towards Freeze from there and circling around. So we need to be checking with them to see if they would be willing to give our students, you know, free internet there while they're doing this. I don't know what we'd have to do to get that, but I will say that we really had a lot of success with our internet, and having all of our hotspots has seemed to work really well. We've got a very high percentage of students right now utilizing the internet for their lessons. A very small percentage are using the packets. So it's really been good so far, all things considered. But yeah, I don't know what to tell you about that. For as far as you all know, spring sports have been canceled and fall sports are up in the air. I texted Billy Hahn briefly the other day, back and forth, and he still doesn't have any update. And of course, there's a lot of crazy rumors about the sports in the fall of, you know, will it be a district schedule only? Will it start late? And I don't have any information to give you folks on that right now. But as soon as I hear something, I'll be glad to let you know. I'll forward you whatever Billy sends out. But I don't know. There's so much speculation right now. I don't know what to tell you. I'll entertain any questions you all have for me on any of these formats or anything else.
I think the BHSL's meeting June the 15th.
I think that's correct, Mr. Weatherman.
Yeah.
Questions for Mr. Wilmore?
Yeah, I got one. How they gonna have a prom and dance 6 feet apart?
That's a great question. It's gonna be awful hard.
Did you ever do that in high school?
No, I didn't. No. It wasn't easy, trust me.
I got a question follow up to last time, and you may not have an answer yet. Is the testing for like nurses, cosmetology, how have they done anything about that as far as getting their hours in?
No, everything they're having to do is from home right now, and they're not letting any of the students in the hospitals or in the nursing homes. And cosmetology, I think she's doing most of that from remote. But I have not. I will double check with Dwayne before this is over with and get back to you here in just a minute, Mr. Anders, to see if he's got any more updates on that. But I know they were working on trying to create some way. Susie, I think you had checked on that too, didn't you?
I did, and they have now a waiver for those students. And what has to happen, they're waiving the hours. So as long as they do their book work and so forth, the instructor can write a letter and recommend that they get their licensure or take their state boards based on that. So they're actually waiving the hands-on hours.
So they still are planning on giving state boards?
As far as I know, they still have to pass the state boards in order to get those licensures. And maybe, I don't know how they're planning to do that, but I do know that they did do a waiver for the actual hands-on hours. And I talked to Mr. Huff about it, and the instructor just has to give them a letter saying that they have completed successfully their book work. So I'm not sure about when they're going to actually go sit for the boards.
Is that just for cosmetology and nursing? Are there any other courses that do state boards?
That is all that I'm aware of.
Any other questions?
Now, I won't say that the nursing, I know that's cosmetology, and now I'm trying to think about the nursing. I'm not sure that is the same procedure for nursing, that they may not be waving their hands on. But I know the cosmetology because that's what I specifically checked on. But I'll check on the nursing as well. I think we talked about that, but I'll check on that as well.
Any other questions for Mr. Wilmore? All right, thank you, Mr. Wilmore. Sounds like you're getting a lot of things done.
We're trying.
Mary, do we have anyone who wants to make any public comments?
No.
All righty, Mr. Redmond, will you take us into closed session, please?
Let me find my paperwork. I've scattered this stuff between here and the house.
I've got it. You want me just to do it?
I got it.
Okay, go ahead.
I move the board convene a closed meeting to pursue to section 2.2-37128 of the Code of Virginia for the purpose of discussing the following specified matters: the discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignments, appointments, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, retirement, or resignation of employees as authorized by section 2.23711A1. Requires a second.
Second.
All right, I will ask everyone to please mute your computers. For those of you who are out in YouTube land listening, we will return with you shortly. Is everybody unmuted who's supposed to be unmuted? All right, Mr. Weatherman, would you bring us back into, take us out of closed session, please?
He's muted.
He's muted.
Alan, Susie? Hold on, Susie's going out. Susie's got him.
Rick is muted too.
Now it should be good.
Now, Mr. Weatherman, will you bring us out of closed session, please?
All right, I don't want to read this thing twice. Where the Grayson County School Board has convened a closed meeting on today pursuant to a affirmative record vote in accordance with the provision of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and word section 2.2-37912 D the Code of Virginia requires the certification of the school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be resolved, the Grayson County School Board hereby certifies that the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempt by Virginia law were discussed in Virginia closed meeting to which certification applies. And only such public business matters as identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Mrs. Haynes,
I so certify.
Mr. Anders,
I so certify.
Mr. Weatherman,
I so certify.
Mr. Chenault,
Also certified.
Mr. Sage,
I so certify.
All righty. Mrs. Linker, approval of personnel.
Yes, ma'am. We have several slates for the board's approval tonight. Appointment number 1.
All right. I'd like to get a motion to approve appointment number 1.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I think that's, I would like to announce and certify that I had no involvement in the hiring decision of my son, William Anders, at this point.
Roll call vote, Mary, for this. For appointment
Mr.
number 1.
Hold
Ms.
on.
Haynes, Mr. Wilmore needs to make a certification statement as
Oh, I apologize, Mr. Wilmore.
School board. This is to certify that I'm recommending candidate number 1 as for the position of intern JVG facilitator at Grayson County High School, Grayson County Cates Center, based on merit and fitness for the position. This candidate has met the required and has the required credentials necessary to hold this position.
All right, we do have a motion. We do have a second. Now, Mary, roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Haynes,
Yes.
Mr. Anders,
I would abstain.
Mr. Weatherman,
Yes.
Mr. Chenault,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Motion carries 4 yes, 1 abstention.
Okay, the next appointment, as I would like to present as presented here and recommended by the superintendent.
All right, does Mr. Wilmore need to,
Would you have a motion?
all right. I'd like to have a motion for appointment number 2
I so move.
and a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Is that,
Need the certification statements?
Go ahead, Mr. Chenault.
I would like to certify that I had no involvement in the hiring decision of my daughter, Kendra Chenault.
And this is to certify that I am recommending candidate number 2 as a kindergarten teacher at Fairview Elementary, cheer coach at GCHS, based on merit and fitness for the position. I also would like to note that this candidate has fulfilled all their credentials for a teaching license and has finished their college degree as well.
All right, roll call vote, Mary?
Mrs. Haynes,
Yes.
Mr. Anders,
Yes,
Mr. Weatherman,
Yes.
Mr. Chenault,
Abstain.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Motion carries 4 yes, 1 abstention. Mrs. Linker?
Yes, ma'am. The next item, appointment number 3 on the slate.
Is there a motion for appointment number 3?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Wilmore, do you need to read anything on this one?
No.
Okay, I'll do a roll call vote, please, Mary.
Mrs. Haynes,
Yes?
Mr. Andrews,
Yes.
Mr. Weatherman,
Yes.
Mr. Chenault,
Abstain.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
And the motion carries with 4 yes, 1 abstention. Appointment number 4, Mrs. Linker.
Yes, ma'am. I would ask that you entertain appointment number 4 as presented.
Is there a motion for appointment number 4?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I
Roll call
certify
vote,
that I
please.
have no involvement in the hiring decision of my son Keith Weatherman, appointment number 4.
And to the school board, I want to certify that I'm recommending Keith Weatherman as the varsity golf coach at GCHS based on merit and fitness. I also certify that no board member has had any involvement with this decision.
All right, Mary, roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Haynes,
Yes?
Mr. Andrews,
Yes.
Mr. Weatherman,
Abstain.
Mr. Chenault,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Motion carries with 4 yes and 1 abstention. And appointment number 5, Mrs. Linker.
Yes, ma'am. Appointment number 5 includes appointments, reappointments of all staff for the 2021 year, and also some resignations for the following year. I would ask that the board consider the appointment number 5 as presented and recommended by the superintendent.
Is there a motion to approve appointment number 5?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, Mary?
Mrs. Haynes,
Yes?
Mr. Andrews,
Yes.
Mr. Weatherman,
Yes.
Mr. Chenault,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0 for those appointments. All right, and approval of the superintendent to serve as a consultant. The superintendent may, with prior approval of the school board, undertake consultative work, speaking engagements, writing, lecturing, or other professional activities for compensation, so long as such activities do not interfere with his duties as superintendent. Mr. Wilmore is requesting that he be allowed to be a paid executive coach for VAS, which is the Virginia Association of School Superintendents. The executive coach serves as a mentor for new superintendents. So it is my recommendation that the board approve Mr. Wilmore or the superintendent to be paid executive coach for VAS. This requires a motion.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
And discussion, I will say that he will be paid through the VAS. He will not be paid through any funds from Grayson County School System. So he would be paid through VAS to mentor other superintendents.
Well, I was chosen by Mark Burnett, so just letting you all know. It shocked me as much as it did anybody else.
So there could be other superintendents out there like you with your training, correct?
There's several. Oh yeah, I mean it's the first time I've ever been chosen in my going into 7th year here. So I've already given him some of my bad habits. He's already after the board of supervisors. So, but it doesn't affect anything with the regular day. I correspond with him just like I talk to him about 3 or 4 times a week anyway. So it has nothing to do with it. But it's not a whole lot of money, but it is a little bit. Any dime I make above my regular pay, I have to let the board know and have them approve it. And I want the board to be on board with this decision. It shocked me that the guy picked me as much as anybody else. God
Well,
love him.
you're a worthy mentor. Any other questions or discussion? All right, roll call vote. Mary?
Mrs. Haynes,
Yes.
Mr. Andrews,
Yes.
Mr. Weatherman,
Yes.
Mr. Chenault,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Absolutely.
Motion carries unanimously. And approval of the reading textbook adoption, Mrs. Funk.
Yes, sir. K-12 teachers have been reviewing reading curriculum now for several weeks. And the Reading Textbook Adoption Committee recommends the following for the adoption period of 2020-2027 for grades K through 8, which is the Houghton Mifflin Harcourt publisher. And so that's K through 8. Now, the high school English teachers are still in the process of reviewing to make their determination on the best curriculum. And hopefully I will have their recommendation at the next meeting. So the recommendation to the superintendent and board is that this reading adoption curriculum be approved for 2020 through 2027 for grades K through 8.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the reading textbooks?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Haynes,
Yes.
Mr. Andrews,
Yes.
Mr. Weatherman,
Yes.
Mr. Chenault,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Our next regular meeting will be June 8th at 6 o'clock, and it too will be a virtual meeting. And a special call meeting of the Grayson County School Board will be held Monday, May 18th. That's next Monday at 6
Madam
o'clock.
Chairman. Madam Chairman,
Yes.
why can't we go back to our regular school board meeting? 10 or less, 6 foot apart. Why do we have to do this? Less
Until
than
we
10,
get some-
less
until
than
we get
10.
some further
6 foot
guidelines
apart.
from somewhere else besides me, then I guess we'll stay where we are.
Board of Supervisors, correct?
Yes. Board of Supervisors issued this ordinance in April, and they haven't changed it, so we still adhere to virtual meetings.
Other school boards is meeting.
Well,
Right.
we have to wait on what the Board of Supervisors for Grayson County decide to do.
Yeah,
That-
I think every board in the county has to abide by this, whether it's the library board or whoever. It's not just us getting with the situation. I mean, it's anybody that's any kind of board according to that ordinance. If I read that correctly.
That's the way it was explained to me as well.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mr. Chenault. I think we're all, and I look for us to stay in this format for a while. I don't look for them to lift it. I really don't.
All right, I'm gonna start over. A special called meeting of the Grayson County School Board will be held on May 18th at 6 o'clock. The meeting will be a virtual meeting due to the restrictions of public gatherings due to the COVID-19 pandemic by Governor Northam. The purpose of the meeting is for the board to take action on the amended 2020-21 school budget, approve the 2021 salary scales, and any other such business matters as come before the board. So we do have a meeting next Monday night, virtual meeting at 6 o'clock. With there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Be safe and stay home.
Fred, come early next Monday evening.
I'll keep Fred down here with me.
See you guys.
Bye.
Thank y'all.
Bye, everyone.
Definitely.
Bye-bye.